Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. And today we're taking a look at the remaining 4 subclasses introduced in the Tal'Dorei campaign setting.
Tal'Dorei.
Tal'Dorei?
Tal'Dorei.
Tal'Dorei.
It's pronounced Tal'Dorei. So all of you people that were saying Tal'Dorei last week when we released a different video about this, you were wrong. And we don't want to hear about how wrong you guys were.
Tal'Dorei or Tal'Dorei?
It's Tal'Dorei, obviously.
I'm still confused.
That's how Matt Mercer says it.
All right, we got a lot to discuss, so let's get on to the episode.
Up on screen right now, you're going to see the metrics that we use to rank subclasses. What we're generally looking for is that an S-tier subclass is the best of the subclass options available. It's going to beat out all of the other subclasses available to that class or be one that you should definitely be taking. An A-tier is one that you should deeply consider. It's going to be great at the table and have a lot of useful abilities that will help you in play.
A B-tier subclass is solid, and it might even be S-tier in the right campaign or with the right build, or have a lot of potential for multi-classing or a couple different options. It's just that it's not necessarily the standout strongest of the subclasses available to that class.
A C tier means that the abilities presented are pretty niche and narrow, although sometimes useful. And finally, a D tier is one that you probably should avoid taking. It's just a trap, and nothing here is as good as the other options presented by the other subclasses. So like all monks love to do, let's kick things off with the Way of the Cobalt Soul Monk. This is a subclass that's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that this was Marisha's character that she played in season 2 of Critical Role. So this one has had the rounds and been available on D&D Beyond for some time. And I'm not sure if it's gone through a couple different revisions, but we're going to be looking at this latest version in the book. The first feature that the Cobalt Soul gets is Extract Aspects. This basically lets them learn information about a foe by punching them, which is kind of appropriate for monks. It's got to be one of the attacks granted by your flurry of blows, and you gain the ability that once that creature that you've analyzed misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to punch them again, giving you a source of extra attacks so long as you are still up to that foe and that foe is attacking and missing you. You also get to learn about their vulnerabilities and resistances and so on, so you are actually gaining knowledge of them and kind of anticipating their blows, I guess, is the flavor here. There's no cost to using this ability at all, aside from just that you had used Flurry of Blows to use it, and it lasts until a short or long rest. There doesn't seem to be a limit to the number of creatures you can affect with this ability at once either.
At 6th level, you gain Extort Truth. Now, as all monks ought to do, you can punch a creature to make it tell the truth. It has to make a charisma saving throw, and you spend a key point to trigger this. But if they fail the saving throw, they can't lie to you for the next 10 minutes. The creature is aware that you punched it, which makes sense, and so it can deliberately try to not answer your questions. But generally speaking, you have a truth punch.
You can also not actually damage it. You can just touch somebody, so you don't have to punch them to force them into your zone of truth. But then what's the point?
I think it's way funnier to tell me what I want to know.
Yeah. Also at 6th level, you gain Mystical Erudition. This gives you an extra language of your choice, and you get proficiency in an additional skill. If you choose to, instead of gaining an additional proficiency, you can gain expertise in one of those skills if you already have proficiency in it. That said, the skills are limited to Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature, and Religion, but you do get more of these as you gain levels, so you can ultimately get proficiency in 3 of these or expertise in 3 of these if you already have that. I think Investigation is probably the most useful one to get the expertise in. Your mileage may vary on how useful Arcana, History, Nature, and Religion are in your campaigns and whether or not you need expertise in those skills to actually make the checks with them.
At 11th level, you're going to gain Mind of Mercury. This is going to allow you once per turn, if you've already taken a reaction, you can spend a key point to take an additional reaction. I think this actually pairs really well with your earlier ability that lets you use a reaction to punch somebody, because now you don't have to forego the use of your only reaction or you can punch somebody twice.
Worth noting, it's still only once per turn. So if a creature has multi-attack and attacks you twice, you still can only use a reaction once per turn. So you would need to have multiple enemies attacking you and missing you for this to be combined with your third level feature. That's not a particularly good place to be in as a monk. I just want to note that if you're in a position where multiple foes are attacking you and they're missing you, it's okay, but monks don't necessarily have an amazing AC. You've got to be 11 levels into monk to get this feature. It does sort of cut off some of the multi-classing combinations that you might use to spike that AC up higher.
I still do think in terms of the monk, if you have the ability to use a reaction to punch somebody when they miss you, you don't want to lose out on the other options you have for your reactions. So this allows you to then use those other features.
True, it does. It is dependent on that situation of you use Flurry of Blows to punch two different creatures, and both those creatures are now attacking you, and they're both missing you, and you're still staying in there. So it's a little bit reliant on a lot of particular battlefield conditions that might not necessarily be in your control. It's not bad.
Finally, at 17th level, we're going to gain Debilitating Barrage. This allows you to spend 3 key points when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, and you get to cause the creature to gain vulnerability to a damage type of your choice for 1 minute, or until the end of a turn in which it takes the damage of that type. If the creature's resistant to this damage type, you can suppress that resistance for 1 minute. This also, I think, works with the earlier ability to punch and analyze, because if you find out that they do have a resistance, you can nullify that resistance to set up your wizard or sorcerer to hit it.
I mean, the very simple use of this feature is punch them the first time, you spend the 3 key points to give them vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, and then you punch them the remaining number of times, getting double damage on all your attacks. So for 3 key points, it's doubling your damage. But one of the things that is important not to miss there is that once a creature takes that damage that you gave it vulnerability to, the effect is going to end.
Which actually, I think, makes this ability worse. I would have liked to be able to unleash my Flurry of Blows at double damage at, like, the highest level I'm playing the monk.
And because it's the end of the turn, if you give it vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, your party members can't even benefit from it either. And the other wording of this thing is that a creature can only be affected by this once per 24 hours. So it's basically for 3 key points, you get to double your damage against a target for 3 of your attacks.
Yeah.
Let me actually just offer something. Wouldn't this have been really good as a part of the third level feature? Because this is another example of a really cool monk ability that has a ton of constraints thrown upon it and is given to the monk at 17th level. It really feels like for me, this is a subclass where, once again, that overly conservative design with the monk features is causing a bunch of design choices to be pulled back. If the feature simply was like 3 key points to cause someone to be vulnerable to damage until the end of your next turn, you could have given that at a much lower level for the monk, and that would have been completely fine. Or, I'm sure there's ways to make it much more powerful, but it is very, that wording of after the creature takes the damage that you gave it vulnerability to, the effect's over.
So you only get 1 attack in of the vulnerable.
Really and truly, like, a better use of this ability would be to give it vulnerability to force damage and then let the sorcerer disintegrate them.
Yeah, like setting up the next
Setting up
person.
someone else's really big hit. Or give it vulnerability to radiant damage and let the paladin start smiting.
Yeah. I think setting up the big hit is really the better use for this.
Yeah.
All in all, the things that I like about the Cobalt Soul is that it does that thing that I like where abilities feed off of earlier abilities, where they all kind of lend into each other. I still think that we are not making our monks powerful enough. I think that they deserve better subclasses. I think this one is a B for me.
On paper, if you unshackled this subclass, and again, I reflect back on the design work that we did with our monks. Here's the thing that makes a really good monk subclass. Okay? Just give it the stuff that the cleric and sorcerer subclasses get. Right? You gotta, like, a monk subclass can go a lot further than this can. For me, I feel like this is a C. I think that the features, if the features were not so limited, didn't cost key, and there was maybe we bump some of these, like, bump everything down a level and create a new 17th level feature, I think then we'd be cooking.
It continues to be a shame. I think monks are great. Like, they're a lot of fun to play. I've played one until 17th level. I think they're awesome.
Yeah.
They have a lot of fun little tricks. I actually think that one of the design flaws when people are designing subclasses for the monk is you make everything cost key points when they already have a bunch of abilities that cost key points.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to see more monk subclasses that just say, here's a bunch of cool stuff that they can do, but they also have key points that they can spend on their core features.
Yes.
I know that we have the key points baked in there, but the more that you spend key points on all of their features, the less they get to do any of them.
Yeah, and it's always a catch-22 because, like, part of the expected design is that a monk subclass should offer you a new thing to do with your key.
Yes.
But monks like to spend their key points on flurry of blows and stunning strikes. And so it always feels like that's immediately the thing. It's like, would I rather do this or would I rather just punch?
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, like, just punching or stunning someone is probably the better play. And at 17th level, 3 key points to get double damage on bludgeoning damage or maybe an attack actually might not be as valuable as stunning an enemy at that high level of play, right?
Yeah.
Like, 3 stunning strikes could drain out a creature's legendary resistances, which is high level is very relevant. 3 stunning strikes, if it's in high level play, a target that's stunned, I would rather the target just be stunned for a round than vulnerable to damage, because even at high levels of play, taking someone's turn out is generally better than making it easier. Like, they're dead at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sticking with a B, but that's just me being hopeful, and I love monks. And
I'm going with C.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. The Oath of the Open Sea trades the Paladin's horse for a ship, and the code of a knight for the code of a pirate, I think. So, like all Paladin subclasses, we got a bunch of spells that we get as our domain spells. In this case, we got Create or Destroy Water, Expeditious Retreat, Augury, Misty Step, Call Lightning, Freedom of the Waves, new spell, Control Water and Freedom of Movement, Commune with Nature, and Freedom of the Winds, another new spell. Because there's 2 new spells, it's worth us just touching on really quickly what these are. Freedom of the Waves is a conjuration spell that is it's a 3rd level spell that is basically a 15-foot radius cylindrical water ball, essentially. The water ball does 2d8 damage on a failed strength saving throw and knocks creatures prone. And it also has automatic friendly fire targeting built into it, as well as letting you teleport within the area if you're within the area. So this is like a weird, like, battlefield control, teleportation, fireball spell.
We also have Freedom of the Winds, which is a 5th level abjuration spell. It's an action to cast. You cast it on yourself, and it does require concentration. You can concentrate on it for up to 10 minutes. With this spell, you gain a flying speed of 60 feet, and you have advantage on ability checks to avoid being grappled and on saving throws against being restrained or paralyzed. When you're targeted by a spell or attack while the spell is in effect, you can use a reaction to teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Doing so ends the spell. So this is like flying with more style to it.
Yeah, it's also interesting that it gives you advantage on grapple, restraint, and paralysis when the subclass is already giving us an aura that's going to protect us against those things and a few other features. Nonetheless, these are two cool spells. Overall, though, I like Misty Step.
Yeah.
I like Commune with Nature. I like Freedom of Movement.
Call Lightning is a really cool spell.
Yeah, but, okay, pertinent issue with Call Lightning on a Paladin, it's an action to call the lightning. And Paladins really want to be attacking, less so than call it. Like, a Paladin wants to concentrate on a spell that doesn't require them to do anything while they're stabbing people and smiting them. Whereas Call Lightning, if you aren't using your action to bring the lightning down...
To be fair and play devil's advocate on this, I fully agree with you, but I would be sad to not see it on the spell list based on the theme of this character.
True. The spell list is fine.
It's middling.
2 new spells on the spell list, being a 3rd level and a 5th level spell, are a little bit tricky to assess as a Paladin because your 3rd level spells aren't going to come online until 9th level. Many Paladins have multi-classed out by then. And the 5th level spells come online really, really late and have a lot of competition going for them.
So my Super Fly spell is not going to actually happen until I'm in the end game.
Well, and even with that, like with the Fly spell, you had to concentrate on that one, and you would have just been able to summon a Flying Steed with Summon Greater Steed.
True.
Right? I imagine summoning... I wonder if your DM would let you ride a giant seagull. Or, of course, you could ride like some sort of aquatic.
Could I have a flying seahorse that lives outside of the water?
Oh, it could be like the Idoneth Deepkin from Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you've got like a sky eel. Could you have a sky shark?
Okay, what are the I'm going to play this character as, what are the aquatic elves called? Or, you know what? No, I'm going to be a Triton. I'm going to be a Triton.
A Triton Paladin.
I'm going to be a Triton Paladin riding a seahorse with a trident. Okay, no, I got a vibe. Now I'm loving this. Call Lightning.
What's also cool about that vibe, though, is that you can use the Channel Divinity to conjure up ocean mist around you that surrounds you in fog. This is kind of like casting darkness on yourself, except it's kind of got like this Eye of the Storm effect to it, where the area around you and within 5 feet of you is only lightly obscured, so you don't need blind sight or something like that to actually like fight effectively as long as you're right up to someone. It's going to be this thing that's going to protect you from ranged attacks while not impairing your ability to run up to somebody and fight them.
Also, if you have this mist around you, you can lightly see, but like you can't be targeted by spells that need to see their target.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it's like that thick fog sort of thing where like the area immediately around you is lightly obscured, but you're also not going to be able to see things that are further than 5 feet away from you. So this does cause some like line of sight and vision issues potentially, but it has applications.
Yeah, if you're being ambushed and you're like, oh no, a rain of arrows, you can fog everything. Your other Channel Divinity, Fury of the Tides, you can use as a bonus action, and you imbue yourself for 1 minute, and all of your attacks now can push targets 10 feet away from you. And if they're pushed into another obstacle or creature, they take bludgeoning damage equal to your Charisma modifier.
Worth noting, you can only push them once per turn, though. At 7th level, you get an Aura of Liberation, and while you're not incapacitated, creatures within 10 feet of you cannot be grappled or restrained and ignore movement penalties for being underwater, and also only need to spend 5 feet of movement to escape from existing grapples and restraints.
At 15th level, you gain Stormy Waters. You can call on the force of crashing waters as a reaction. When creatures move into or out of your reach, the creature takes 1d12 bludgeoning damage and must succeed on a strength saving throw against your spell save DC or be knocked prone.
And finally, at level 20, you're a Mythic Swashbuckler. This is your classic Paladin Uber charge up Super Saiyan mode, and in this case you get advantage on strength athletics checks. You gain climb speeds. If you have a climbing speed, it's doubled. You have advantage on attack rolls against creatures within 5 feet of you. If you're just dueling them, you have advantage on dexterity saving throws, and again, you can only use this once per day. It's the classic like Paladin avatar state sort of thing. They're always powerful, but they're a 20th level feature, so I tend to not make them a factor in my ranking.
I think that this is a really good subclass. It's really capturing the essence of both my favorite, when you combine theme and mechanics together, to make like you feel like you're playing the swashbuckling paladin. It's a pirate paladin.
It is a pirate paladin. I think okay, for me, with paladin subclasses are always weird because you've got the spell list, which is a huge part of their power budget. You've got their channel divinity, which generally the channel divinity and the spell list are where the power of a paladin subclass comes from. The aura tends to be the next like most effective thing, but then paladins are weird because like you get all this stuff at third level, you get the aura at level 7, and then you have to wait till level 15 to get another feature, and then you get like your crazy once per day ability at level 20. So for me, in evaluating the subclass, I tend to look most at the spell list, which is cool, thematic, but overall for me, I kind of go, I'm glad Misty Step's there.
You know what? I'm different when it comes to analyzing a paladin, because for me, I think of the spell list as extra gravy on my poutine, where I think that I'm usually smiting with my spell slots. So if I have a few extra spells that I can dabble in there, cool. But usually the Paladin extra expanded spell list is give or take for me, whether I'm even going to use them over smiting in the first place. This has a few cool uses. I like the Call Lightnings here, even though I know what you're saying, but there are some cases where Call Lightning is going to be a better option. If you're in a seafaring campaign and you're calling lightning on the rival ship that you're sailing towards, and then I channel divinity to knock people off my ship as they're trying to swing over. If I'm fighting on a bridge or near a cliff, I love that channel divinity of just pushing people. And then the mist, it's 20 feet. If you're on a small boat...
Yeah, it can protect your boat.
You could protect the whole boat.
So for me, when I look at the Paladin spell list and the channel divinity feature, I'm not looking for the gravy. I'm looking for the cheese. I'm looking for a new kind of cheese that I can put on my fries. The fries being the smites, right? So when I want some new cheese to go on my fries, I'm looking for something that really goes well together, that adds like both a new flavor, but also makes the whole thing more delicious and ultimately more calories, so more powerful. And so like that's why the Oath of Vengeance is so potent, because the spell list and the channel divinity power just completely intersect with, oh yes, you want the things that make your smites better, right? That,
I mean, if you're using something other than cheese curds, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, but there can be different kinds of cheese curds.
I suppose.
Right? We can have new kinds of cheese curds made of more expensive and unique cheeses.
Okay, fair.
You know, the Oath of Vengeance with its advantage, disadvantage thing, it stacks on top of so many things that add to the damage output of the class, right? Whereas here, we do have the push, which is cool. We've got the mist thing is not quite darkness. It's not like the Darkness Devil Sight combo, because the version of this that you want is you can see in the mist, but your enemies can't. Because then that version means that you attack them with advantage, they have disadvantage on attacking you. But that's not, in practical terms, that's not what this is actually going to do.
Right.
Right.
I do think, though, that like as we build up this paladin, I know again you say that the 20th level feature, you barely count it. I do think that I like looking at the package as a whole. I think that this is an A-tier paladin subclass.
I love the flavor. I love all the concepts here. For me, it's a B.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I want to play my Triton riding a seahorse.
Yeah. I think for me, I look for a little bit more raw power in putting something in the A tier, and I'm seeing lots of utility. I'm seeing lots of interesting features. I'm seeing a really cool defensive aura. I'm seeing two potentially useful channel divinities that have lots of applications. But for me, all of these things are all about, like, are you going to find the right circumstances to use it? Are you going to be able to use them effectively? Rather than like that clear-cut scenario of like, add this to smite, have fun.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I might be picturing my pirate campaign, and that's where I'm at. But if you're not in a pirate campaign, is it as useful? I'm going to stick with an A.
Okay.
Just because I really like it, but I might, if people out there are like, Kelly, you're thinking too much about it, you're Triton in a pirate campaign, you're probably right.
I think that that's why I'm willing to give it a, like, I think that the B is acknowledging that when you are playing the Triton Paladin in a pirate campaign, it's amazing, right? And for me, B tier is S tier in the right campaign. And so I do think that if you are playing this character in the context of that scenario, absolutely, it's a lot stronger. But I'm thinking, what are you doing in a dungeon?
Drowning people
Well,
with cylinders of water.
yes, but at 9th level when you get that spell. Again, for me, it's always the ranking will always be higher the sooner you get the cool thing. The sooner the character gets the sooner you get to do the thing that makes you feel like the cool Triton on the horse, right? Like that's why for me that the 20th level Paladin feature, I just can't factor that into my ranking because in a practical sense, you're going to get to use that once in an entire campaign, maybe. And will that be the coolest, most epic and useful moment in the entire campaign? Yes, assuming you got to 20th level and got to use it.
And if your DM tells you that you cannot have a floating seahorse as your mount, they're not a great DM. Next, we come to the Runechild Sorcerer, and at first level, you gain the Essence Runes. This is the main mechanic that you need to learn for using this character. It adds a bit of complexity, but once you get it, the rest of the subclass uses it. Depending on the level you are, you have a number of runes on your skin, on your body, wherever you want them to appear. These runes, you have a number of them equal to the level that you are in the Sorcerer class. And whenever you use sorcery points, these runes charge up and begin to glow. They are now charged runes. You can also spend sorcery points to charge runes. So either your natural abilities that you're using as a sorcerer are going to charge these runes up, or you can just buy them at the cost of sorcery points as well. These runes, as they get charged up, can then be expended to use your other features that you're going to gain in this subclass.
So the best way to think about this is it's kind of like as you spend sorcery points to do the things that you were going to do anyways as a sorcerer, you're getting a little bit of change back that you can use on the features of this class. Right? So I think both of us were super confused by this the first time we read it.
It took 2 or 3 readings, and then I was like, I got it, let's go.
So you're going to get a bunch of empty cups. And as you spend sorcery points, you fill those cups up, and then you can use those cups for new things.
Once you use the cups, you can't fill them again until you finish a long rest. So there's multiple things happening here.
There's a lot of stuff to track, and any of the runes that are charged up when you take the long rest become inert again. But I think that if somehow you were able to charge all your runes up and you then used all those charges, I think you can still charge them up again without needing to rest.
Okay, right. So the filled cups empty and return to normal runes, but you can fill them up again.
Yes.
But any runes that you have filled, the cup gets emptied when you finish a long rest.
Yes.
So I still needed to read this another time to fully grasp it. Okay.
Exactly. It's weird, and it is another thing to track.
But it's a cool thing.
You
just need to grasp it.
Yeah. As an example, let's say that you are an 8th level sorcerer.
So you have 8 runes.
8 runes. Let's say that you spend 4 sorcery points to twin polymorph.
So now you have 4 charged runes.
Yes. And then you spend 2 more sorcery points to quicken a cantrip.
Now you have 6
charged
of your
runes.
8 charged.
Yes.
And if I wanted to, I could spend sorcery points to charge the final 2.
Yes, you can spend 1 sorcery point to charge 2 essence runes.
Yeah.
I actually don't know why you would do that, but we'll come to that. So now that we've talked about this really complicated feature, we're going to completely sidetrack because this is also a new sorcerer subclass, and as such, it gets an automatic set of spells known.
And the ability to swap out those spells knowns for other spells from certain schools. In this case, it's Transmutation and Abjuration?
From Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard.
Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. So that actually is quite a large array of spells to choose from.
Oh, yeah.
So your expanded spell list includes Long Strider, protection from evil and good, Lesser Restoration, protection from poison, Glyph of Warding, Magic Circle, Death Ward, freedom of movement, greater restoration, and telekinesis.
That's really funny because I read this and I saw shield and mage armor, enlarge reduce and lesser restoration, haste and counterspell, banishment and polymorph.
We're keeping telekinesis.
Yeah, we'll keep telekinesis and greater restoration.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
This spell list, not great. But you can swap them out for abjuration and
Yeah. So it's the same deal as the Clockwork Soul.
Yeah, you're going to throw most of these out, and you're going to grab some of the best spells in the game. So when you're looking at this expanded spell list, ignore it and just remember that you have 2 spells of each of these levels that you can swap and pick some of our favorite spells.
Abjuration and Transmutation are amazing.
They're amazing,
yeah. Yeah. They have some of the, and they have spells on them that sorcerers love.
Yeah.
That are really good for twinning, that are really good for quickening, all that good stuff. So it's great. It immediately this alone, just as with the Aberrant Mind and the Clockwork Soul, this feature alone catapults this into an S tier subclass. But
we'll see where the rest of it lands, but it's excellent having those 2 schools of magic to pick from, especially if you have access to the Warlock and Wizard spell list as well.
So with that, now we actually get the first level feature that lets us use the charged runes. It's called the Glyph of Aegis, and you can release the stored arcane power in the runes to absorb damage. So how it works is when you take damage, you spend some charged runes and your reaction. You roll a d6 equal to the number of runes you expended and reduce the damage by the total. This is actually very similar to the Blade Singer ability that lets you trade spell slots to do a very similar thing, except in this case, you're just trading the charged runes that you accumulated for doing the things you were going to do anyways.
Yeah, so you kind of have a built-in protection nodes on your body.
Yeah.
Which is great. And this ability actually gets better at 6th level. At 6th level, you can now spend up to 3 charges of your runes to imbue this protection onto somebody else. And now for the next hour, they have that protection and can roll d6s to negate damage. So at 6th level, we can share the protective nature, which might be useful if you have somebody who is going to be your frontliner or who is going to investigate a trap or anything like that. You can actually give a protective ward to your allies. And the die goes up to a D8 at 14th level. So this ability already has built-in growth within it, which I really like.
At level 6, you can channel your runes to bolster your physical capabilities, and basically you can spend one of the charged runes to give you advantage on a strength, dexterity, or constitution ability check. It does cost you a reaction to do that, though. In addition, you can also do this to get an advantage on a saving throw with one of those abilities, but you can only use this once per long rest on a save. The other feature that you get at level 6 is more of a ribbon feature. It lets you spend a charge room to reveal invisible arcane traps and glyphs and giving yourself advantage on intelligence checks to investigate them and look around. It's potentially useful depending on like how much your dungeon master likes doing arcane mysteries that you would normally solve with detect magic and intelligence checks.
I do want to point out though, that our 1st level ability gains an additional feature at 6th level. Then we gain the 6th level ability to use our rune on ability checks and saving throws. Then we gain a ribbon feature, and ribbon features are just that. They aren't the bread and butter of your class, but the fact that you get them in addition, like you have your 6th level feature, but you also gain this bonus, which for me is adding this niche option to this sorcerer to help in a special situation, which could be very useful a few times in your campaign. As a ribbon feature, it's great because it's not our only 6th level feature. We actually have 3 things we're getting at 6th level, which is pretty cool.
The 14th level feature, Runic Torrent, lets you expend 2 charge runes to cause one of your spells to deal force damage instead of its usual damage type, and also adds an additional strength save to all the creatures hit by it, or they have to get knocked prone and pushed up to 15 feet away. So you can basically make a concussive force fireball with this, but you can only do it once per short or long rest.
Force damage is not usually resisted by many creatures.
I mean, this is just a cute little feature to buff up one of your damage dealing spells once per short rest, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting at 18th level, you gain Arcane Exemplar. This is the classic, again, you empower yourself and gain a whole bunch of features.
Yeah, it's like avatar state, super mode, whatever.
So when you're in your avatar state, you gain a flying speed of 60 feet. Creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your sorcerer spells. You have resistance to damage being dealt to you by spells. And whenever you cast a spell of first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to the spell's level. This lasts until the end of your turn, but you can use one of your charged runes to extend the duration. So if you have a fully charged, I picture them on my arm.
Yeah.
So if you have a fully charged battery, you can just keep this going for several rounds.
Well, the thing is that your battery's going to be charging up because you play a sorcerer.
Just
How
keep
often
using
do you
sorcery
not?
points.
Yeah. How often do you not spend sorcery points on your turn? Like
I do quite a bit not do it, but that's because I'm stupid and forget.
But even twinning a spell or quickening a spell keeps you going.
Empowering.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I'm empowering a spell, and that's just going to give me an extra notch, and then I can stay in my super mode. I think that this is an S tier sorcerer subclass.
I don't know if it's more powerful than the Clockwork Soul or the Aberrant Mind. I feel like the Clockwork Soul is maybe overtaken by this.
Yeah, but I think that this is a very potent and fun. I love the runes mechanic is actually...
I think the only reason why I think the Clockwork Soul might be a little bit stronger is because it does get Wall of Force and this doesn't. But I mean, we're splitting hairs at that point. These are both really strong. This is also just like the most neutral arcane bloodline sort of sorcerer subclass that I think we've seen in 5th edition.
D&D has gone and told us that the Dragon Sorcerer is the sort of bread and butter sorcerer, but I actually think if you remove the Tal'Dorei sort of themes from here, this does feel like the most sorcerer.
Yeah.
It's just like use your magic powers to imbue yourself with magic energy to fuel more magic powers. It's the magic sorcerer.
Yeah, and essentially the charged runes mechanic is a very complicated way of just giving you a little bit of change back on every time you spend sorcery points. So this is an example of a subclass that just has a ton of internal synergy because it's letting you spend all your sorcery points on the things that you wanted to use sorcery points for anyways, and then saying, hey, now here's a new resource unique to this subclass that you can spend on some new features.
And so you're just being a sorcerer, you're getting change, and you're spending that change to protect yourself, protect your allies, bolster your ability checks, saving throws,
and go Super Saiyan.
There's nothing bad about that.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
love
great. This is an S tier subclass. So the final subclass introduced in the book is the Blood Magic Wizard. And I love blood magic. It's so evocative. And it's always hit or miss I see this implemented.
That's the thing. It's a beautiful concept, but it's actually been very hard. I've seen a lot of attempts from third-party content to be like, hurt yourself, do cool things. But I really feel that like either you look at it and you go, oh, I'm hurting myself way too much to do the cool things, or the cool things are way too powerful.
Yeah.
And it's actually hard to find the balance of how much damage you take and how much cool stuff you do.
Yes. And it's also like blood magic... Is blood magic like always evil?
No. Wait. I didn't think it was in Dragon Age. I know that there was that was part of the theme is like, are you cool with blood magic or not? I was always cool with it. I always thought it was great.
I mean, everyone that makes a blood magic subclass is like living in the shadow of the Dragon Age Origins blood mage. That was such a fun...
I'm a big promoter of blood magic, and like that's actually how I introduce myself to people. Hi, Kelly McLaughlin, promoter of blood magic. So that's just my vibe.
Okay, so what is this subclass going to let us do? First, it's going to let us channel the blood channeling. At level 2, we get to use our depleted life essence to channel our magical abilities, and whenever our hit points are below our hit point maximum, we can use our own body as an arcane focus. Okay, that's cool. And in addition, you can take necrotic damage instead of spending 50 gold when you cast spells with a costly component.
It's 1d10 per 50 gold. So if you have
Yeah.
something with a high cost, you're going to be rolling a bunch of d10s.
If this damage reduces you to 0, the spell fails, but the spell slot is not expended. So I guess in theory you could try to like, so a spell that has like a 1000 GP material component, that would be 20 d10 necrotic damage.
Good
So
luck.
you could try.
You could try.
Yeah,
You could certainly try.
That's an average of 110 damage.
I'd do it. What's the worst that could happen?
A 500 GP expensive material component, that's 10 d10. So that's 55 damage on average.
Yeah, but we can just bank on me rolling bad. Maybe I'll only do 10 damage.
Maybe it'll do 100.
True. So this is one of those things that I would probably use more for the low cost items. Or if like I'm in the most desperate situation where it's going to be a TPK unless I bust out this spell that requires a 500 gold something, then maybe I would sacrifice myself to try to pull it off. For the most part, cool.
Yeah.
Also at second level, we gain Sanguine Burst. Whenever you roll damage for a spell you've cast at first level or higher, you can choose to take necrotic damage equal to the spell's level to reroll a number of the damage dice up to your intelligence modifier. This damage can't be reduced in any way. So at first reading, you're like, okay, hurt yourself to bolster your spells. But the cost of hurting yourself here is not high. I just cast a fireball. And what? I have to take 3 damage to re-roll the like 4 or 5 ones that I rolled in my.
That's good.
That's worth it.
Okay, so the thing that makes this hard to poach for multiclassing is that it is tied to your intelligence modifier. So if you're playing a sorcerer with a intelligence modifier of +1 or +0, it's going to be, you're only going to get to reroll 1 die.
You're talking about the multi-class.
If you multi-class with this. So it kind of has a little bit of dip insurance built into it.
Artificer.
Artificer could do it, but I don't know if you want to be casting the more powerful spells for this.
Here's why I love this ability.
Yeah.
I actually feel like you do feel like you're doing blood magic because you are hurting yourself, but the hurt never feels terrible. Even if I'm at the highest level of play, 9 damage to re-roll a bunch of dice on a 9th level spell is worth it.
Yes, and you get to be very strategic and intentional about it because you're going to pick up, the fireball is such a great example because like you roll 8d6. When you roll 8d6, you're going to have some 1s and 2s in there somewhere. So you're always going to see that there's a couple dice that are worth re-rolling. You're taking 3 damage, but then that 3 damage is turning into a bunch of extra damage against everybody hit by that fireball.
My character takes 3 damage when he stubs his toe, walking. It's fine.
Yeah.
I can handle 3 damage, no problem.
Yeah, I like this ability. It's really good.
And because I love it so much, I'm going to overuse it, and those 3 damages are going to stack up over time. And I am doing blood magic.
Yeah. And it comes online at second level, which when you compare to like other wizard subclasses that give you a damage boost, like the Evoker has to wait till level 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 6th level, you gain Bond of Mutual Suffering. When you take a bunch of damage, you can throw it back at the enemy that caused it. It's a reaction once per short or long rest, and I think that this is an ability that you save for a crit.
Yeah.
When the monster crits you, that's when you go, no, you first. Well, you at the same time.
Yeah, because you're not going to shield your way out of a crit.
No. You're going to be shielding and protecting yourself in other circumstances, but when you are taking that massive boatload of damage, because you only get to use this once per short or long rest, don't use it on like I got hit for 18 damage. No, you're getting hit for 60, throw it back at the enemy.
Yeah.
Then you're actually having a major impact on the battle, and you just get to turn something that was happening to you anyway into a benefit for you and your allies.
You can't use it against constructs or undead, and most importantly, it does need to be an attack that you're throwing back. So if someone tries to disintegrate you, you're not going to throw that back because it's a spell. That's a saving throw based. Or if a dragon breathes fire on you or you get hit by a meteor swarm, you're not throwing those back. But if you are getting assassinated and someone tries to sneak attack you or someone tries to smite you, any of those big things that do a boatload of damage, you can toss that right back.
I should also mention that at 14th level, you can now use it twice per short or long rest.
Yep. At level 10, you get the Glyph of Hemorrhaging. When you damage a creature with a spell, you can curse them for 1 minute. And when cursed in this way, whenever the creature is hit by an attack, it takes an extra d6 necrotic damage. This is basically a free little hex. Unfortunately, the creature does get to make a con save at the end of each of its turns to end this. You don't have to concentrate on it. You can't use it against constructs or undead, and you can use it once per short or long rest. It's a little tricky to use this because wizards don't generally make a lot of attacks unless you're using like a spell like Scorching Ray. So when you damage a creature, there's a chance that it's going to come back around to your turn and you didn't even get the benefit from this because it made its first saving throw against it. There's another chance that, like if it's your turn and then the fighter who's going to action surge goes after you before the monster, then you're going to get a lot out of this. And it costs you nothing. It's just that it might not do anything.
Yeah. Finally, at 14th level, we gain Thicker Than Water, and this makes you heal better and more resistant to damage. So when you get healed by a healing spell, you also gain additional hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. And if you're concentrating on a spell, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage.
That's so
from non-magical
nice.
Attacks.
That is nice.
This is a pretty successful Blood Mage.
I like it.
Yeah. I don't think it's the greatest wizard.
It's not a bad
But
wizard.
it's not a bad wizard at all.
No. I would play this.
I think it's an A.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I think that you're getting enough tools here to empower cool abilities, bolster your spells, do a little bit of extra damage, not take too much damage, but take enough that you feel like you're doing blood magic.
This is a decent blaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Evoker is still the better blaster, but this fit again, it's matching the theme that they wanted to tell with quality mechanics.
I like all the features feel level appropriate. Like getting resistance to bludgeoning and piercing non-magical damage at 14th level whenever you're concentrating on a spell is really good. Right? Throwing the damage back is cute. Potentially cursing someone might pay off big time, it might not.
Yeah.
I think the biggest feature here is honestly taking the little bit of damage to reroll your damage on your spells. And that really does put you into blaster territory. But it's not a bad place to be.
One thing to note, this wizard's going to suck in an undead campaign.
Yeah, or if there's a lot of constructs. So Sanguine Burst is worded that whenever you roll damage for a spell you've cast of first level or higher. So could you, in theory, like if you had a concentration spell that lets you roll damage for it on an ongoing basis, can you use that there?
I would say so. You just keep hurting yourself every turn. Every time that you roll the dice, you can take the damage to reroll. That's the way I interpret it.
Okay, so what that means then is if you have like a wall of fire or a big beast hand.
I'm feeding my blood into it. I'm like cutting my palm and continue like letting my blood fuel that fire.
It's a grim image, but like, I mean, that's pretty potent if that's the case. There's also that case where like where you get the Scorching Ray to really hit hard because you've got this like extra source of hex that you don't have to concentrate on, which if that curse pays off for you, then it's kind of cool. I think this is pretty decent. I think it's an A. Like I think that there's definitely a lot that you could. It's just raw power.
I'm giving this an A, and overall, I think like the Tal'Dorei subclasses are for the most part great.
Yeah.
And when they have fallen a little short in our books, I still think that what happens on the ones that fell short, the Bard and maybe the Monk, is that they're still driving forward the narrative and themes that Critical Role is going for.
Yeah.
So if you're really into the themes of the Critical Role, the setting in the world, there's still good subclasses for those themes. They just don't mechanically do as well as some of the other ones.
Although these subclasses are not truly official content and that they weren't part of like the core D&D 5th edition rule set and put out by Darrington Press. The Darrington Press team is amazingly talented, and they've created a group of subclasses that still fall well within the range of they go from the highs of what you'd see in Tashes and Xanathars to the lows of what you'd see in Tashes and Xanathars. So I think if you're allowing those books, there's no point, like you can allow this pretty safely at your tables. Are there certain ones that are stronger? Yes. But they're within they're within my range of tolerance.
And one thing that I think that Darrington Press really did a good job on is delivering on the themes and flavors. I'm now obsessed with my Triton Pirate Paladin.
Yeah.
Because it combines both one of my favorite classes in the game, the Paladin, with one of my favorite themes, which is like fantasy pirates. So yeah, let's marry those together. I'm a big fan of a lot of what's happened with these subclasses. I think that they're great design work. And I think that I'm excited to see more third-party creators get a spotlight on their creations.
Yeah.
And we might be reviewing more third-party subclasses in the near future.
We would love to hear your suggestions for other projects by third-party creators that have created new subclasses for 5th edition that you would like us to see go through and rank. Grim Hollow's pretty close to the top of the list.
We won't be ranking our own subclasses because we love them all, and it feels weird but we will give build guides to the apothecary.
I feel like maybe we could call in some friends to be the unbiased arbiter for ranking our own. We'll see how those go.
I don't want to hear about which one of my ideas are average. But I'll be okay.
In any case, we would love to hear from you. What other amazing creations by other 5th edition publishers that have subclasses would you like to see us take a look at? Tell us about the comments below.
And if you want to see us playing D&D, you can check out our actual play in the Worlds of Dragonite, which airs Tuesday evenings on Twitch. You can find all the previous episodes right up over here.
And of course, we've got all of our other tier ranking videos right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.